There's a moment when someone wakes up and realizes they've been living someone else's version of their life. It happens on a Tuesday morning while making coffee. The kitchen is quiet. The routine is the same as yesterday. The job is stable. The apartment is clean. Everything looks fine from the outside. But standing there, waiting for the water to boil, there's a feeling that won't go away. A quiet ache that says, "This isn't what I wanted." Not the coffee, the whole shape of the day, the whole shape of the year. Somewhere along the way, the dreams got smaller, the plans got safer. The future became something that happens to you, not something you build. And now, there's just this dull awareness that time is passing and nothing inside feels alive. The person pours the coffee, checks their phone, and gets ready for work. But the question stays, when did I stop dreaming? And what would happen if I started again? This isn't about fantasy or wishful thinking. It's about the gap between the life you're living and the life you once imagined. That gap shows up everywhere. In relationships, someone stays with a partner who's comfortable but not inspiring because leaving feels too uncertain. At work, someone keeps doing tasks they're good at but don't care about because trying something new might fail. In family, someone keeps playing the role everyone expects, the responsible one, the peacemaker, the one who doesn't make waves, because stepping outside that role might disappoint people. And alone, late at night, there's the scrolling, the endless watching of other people's lives, the YouTube videos about people who quit their jobs and traveled, the Instagram posts of people who started businesses or wrote books or moved to new cities. And underneath the scrolling is the thought, I wish I could do that. But I can't. I'm not that kind of person. The dream becomes something other people get to have, not you. You stay practical. You stay realistic. You stay stuck. Most people learn this early. A child comes home from school and says, I want to be an artist when I grow up. And a parent says, that's nice, honey, but how will you make money? The message lands. Dreams
are lovely, but survival is serious. Another child says, I want to travel the world. And here's, you need to think about your future. Another says, I want to write stories. And here's, you're good at math, you should be an engineer. These aren't cruel parents, they're scared parents. They grew up in a world where dreaming too big meant disappointment, where trying and failing meant shame, where the safest path was the narrow one: school, job, marriage, house, repeat. So they teach their children to be careful, to be smart, to choose security over desire. And the child learns to split in two. One part still dreams, one part shuts the dream down before anyone else can. By the time that child is an adult, the dream isn't even visible anymore. It's buried under years of, be realistic, that's not practical, people like us don't do that. What's left is a life that works on paper, but feels hollow in the chest. This connects to what psychologists call the false self, the version of you that adapts to what others need, want, or expect. The false self is built for survival, not for meaning. It learns which dreams are acceptable and which ones must be hidden. It learns to perform competence, stability, and contentment, even when none of those are true. Over time, the false self becomes so convincing that you forget it's a performance. You forget there was ever a real self underneath, a self that wanted things, that felt pulled towards certain futures, that had a vision of a life worth living, not just a life worth maintaining. The false self doesn't dream, it manages, it optimizes, it survives, and it's exhausted. The cost of this shows up everywhere. At work, someone gets promoted but feels nothing. They worked hard for years to reach this level, but now that they're here, it just feels like more of the same tasks with a fancier title. They sit in meetings and think, is this it? Is this what I spent all that time working toward? In relationships, someone realizes they've been choosing partners based on who would fit into their life, not who makes them feel alive. The relationship is stable, it's predictable, but there's no spark, no growth, no sense of
building something together, just two people sharing space and going through motions. In family, someone keeps showing up to dinners and holidays and playing the same role they've played since childhood. The good daughter, the responsible son, the one who doesn't cause problems. And every time they leave, they feel a little more like a stranger to themselves. Alone, the signs get quieter but sharper. A tightness in the chest when scrolling,
a flash of anger when someone else announces a big life change, a dull sadness on Sunday nights that has nothing to do with Monday and everything to do with the realization that another week is about to pass exactly like the last one. The dream, whatever it was, feels further away than ever, not because it's impossible, because it's been ignored for so long that it stopped knocking. But here's the shift. The dream didn't die, it went underground. And the feelings that seem like problems, the restlessness, the dissatisfaction, the quiet rage at your own life, those aren't signs that something's wrong with you. They're signs that the real self is still alive, that the part of you that wanted more, that imagined a different future, that felt pulled towards certain work or places or ways of being, that part is still there. It's just been waiting. Anger at your own stuckness is information. It's telling you that you've been living smaller than you need to. Envy of someone else's courage is information. It's showing you what you want but haven't admitted. Boredom with your own routine is information. It's saying this isn't enough anymore. The problem isn't that you have dreams. The problem is that you've been taught to see them as naive, selfish, or dangerous. You've been taught that growing up means giving them up. But growing up actually means learning how to build a life that honors what matters to you, not just what keeps you safe. So what does it look like to reconnect with the dream? Not the fantasy version, but the real one. Not the one that sounds impressive to others, but the one that pulls at you when you're honest. Here are practices that help. Notice what you envy. Envy gets a bad reputation, but it's one of the most
Honest emotions you have. When you feel jealous of someone else's life, that's not pettiness. That's your real self pointing at something it wants. The practice is simple. When you feel that pang of envy, scrolling social media, hearing a friend's news, watching someone take a risk, write it down. Not to judge it, just to notice it. I felt envious when I saw someone quit their job to write full-time. I felt envious when someone moved to a new city without a plan. I felt envious when someone said they're going back to school at 40. Then ask, what specifically am I envious of? Not the whole life, the specific piece. Is it the courage, the freedom, the creativity, the adventure? That specific piece is the clue. It's showing you what your real self wants that your false self has been denying. A woman scrolls past a post of someone starting a pottery business and feels a sharp stab of jealousy. She thinks, I could never do that. But when she writes it down and looks closer, she realizes it's not pottery she wants, it's the permission to make something with her hands instead of just sitting at a computer all day. That's the dream, not the whole business, just the making. And that's something she can start exploring without quitting her job or blowing up her life. Finish the sentence. If I weren't afraid, I would. Fear is what keeps the dream locked away. Not just big dramatic fear, but the small daily fear of being judged, failing, wasting time, disappointing people, looking foolish, or discovering you're not good enough. This practice cuts through all of that. Set a timer for 5 minutes and write, if I weren't afraid, I would. Keep writing without stopping. Let it get messy, let it get ridiculous, let it surprise you. Don't censor, don't edit. Just follow the sentence wherever it goes. If I weren't afraid, I would quit my job and move to a smaller town. If I weren't afraid, I would tell my partner I want something different. If I weren't afraid, I would start painting again. If I weren't afraid, I would apply for that program even though I don't have all the qualifications. When the timer stops, read what you wrote. Some of it will be fantasy, but some of it will be truth. The truth is the part that makes your chest feel tight and open at the same time. That's the dream speaking. A man does this exercise and writes, if I weren't afraid, I would go back to school to become a therapist. He's been working in finance for 15 years. The idea feels absurd, but when he reads it, he realizes he's been thinking about it for 5 years. The dream has been there the whole time. He just hasn't let himself say it out loud. Take one tiny step toward the dream this week. Dreams die not because they're impossible, but because they stay abstract. The practice is to make the dream concrete, not by committing to the whole thing, just by taking one small step that moves you closer to the feeling of the dream. If the dream involves writing, the step isn't write a novel, it's write for 15 minutes this week. If the dream involves travel, the step isn't quit your job and move abroad, it's research one place you've always wanted to visit. If the dream involves a career change, the step isn't go back to school, it's talk to one person who does that work. The step has to be small enough that fear can't stop you, but real enough that it's not just thinking. A woman has always wanted to work with animals, but ended up in HR. The full dream feels impossible. She has bills, a mortgage, responsibilities. But the tiny step? She volunteers at a shelter one Saturday morning. She doesn't quit her job, she doesn't change her whole life, but for 3 hours, she's doing something that feels aligned with who she actually is. And that feeling of being in the right place, doing the right thing, that's what the dream is made of, not the destination, the direction. Create a future self conversation. This is imagination work, but it's grounded. Sit somewhere quiet, close your eyes. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. Not the version of you that played it safe, the version that listened to the dream and started building toward it. What does that person's day look like? Where do they wake up? What do they do for work? Who's around them? How do they feel in their body? Don't force a perfect picture. Just notice
What comes? Then imagine that future self turns around and talks to you right now, in this moment. What do they say? What advice do they give? What do they wish you knew? Write it down as if they're writing you a letter. This isn't fantasy. It's accessing the part of you that already knows what you want, but has been too afraid to say it. A man does this and imagines himself 5 years from now teaching music part-time and living in a smaller, quieter town. Current him thinks that's impossible. Future him says, you didn't need as much money as you thought, and you were so much happier when you had space to breathe. That conversation becomes a compass, not a rigid plan, but a direction that feels true. Talk to one person about the dream. Dreams stay stuck when they stay silent. The practice is to say the dream out loud to another person, not someone who will judge or fix it, someone who will listen. Start small. I've been thinking about something lately. Then say it, even if it sounds ridiculous, even if you immediately want to take it back. I've been thinking about going back to school. I've been thinking about moving somewhere new. I've been thinking about starting something creative. The point isn't to get advice, it's to hear yourself say it, to make it real by speaking it into the air. Often, just saying it out loud shifts something. It stops being a secret shame and becomes a possibility. A woman tells her best friend, I think I want to leave my job and try something completely different, but I don't even know what. She expects her friend to say, that's crazy, you have a great job. Instead, her friend says, I've been feeling the same way. What if we both started looking? Suddenly, the dream isn't a lonely fantasy, it's a shared possibility, and that makes it easier to move toward. Protect 1 hour a week for the dream. Not to work on it, just to be with it. No phone, no distractions, no productivity pressure. Just you and the dream. This might look like sitting with a journal and writing about what the dream would feel like if it were real, or researching something related to the dream without committing to anything, or trying something
that's connected to the dream. Drawing, coding, reading, cooking, exploring a neighborhood you've never been to. The point is to give the dream space to breathe, to stop treating it like a guilty pleasure or a waste of time, and start treating it like something worth your attention. A man blocks off Sunday mornings. He doesn't have a plan. He just sits with coffee and a notebook and lets himself think about what he actually wants instead of what he should want. Some weeks he writes, some weeks he just sits. But over time, patterns emerge, themes repeat. The dream starts to clarify, not into a perfect plan, but into something he can start moving toward, one small choice at a time. Write a permission letter to yourself. This is the practice for when you know what you want, but keep waiting for someone else to tell you it's okay. Write yourself a letter giving you permission. I give myself permission to want this. I give myself permission to try, even if I fail. I give myself permission to disappoint people if that's what it takes to live honestly. I give myself permission to change my mind about what I thought my life would look like. Sign it, date it, keep it somewhere you can see it, because no one else is going to give you this permission. Not your parents, not your partner, not your boss. The only person who can give you permission to build the future you actually want is you. A woman writes, I give myself permission to want a quieter life, even if other people think I'm wasting my potential. She's been living in a big city, climbing a corporate ladder, doing everything she was supposed to do, but she's miserable. The letter doesn't solve everything, but it stops her from waiting for someone else to tell her it's okay to leave. She already told herself, that's enough to start. Over time, something shifts. Not overnight, not dramatically, but gradually,
the life starts to feel more like yours. The future stops being something that happens to you and becomes something you're actively building. You make small choices that align with the dream instead of against it. You say no to things that drain you, even when people are disappointed. You say yes to
things that scare you but feel right. Relationships change. Some people don't understand why you're suddenly different. They liked the version of you that stayed small and predictable. Those relationships fade, and that's painful, but it's also honest. Other relationships deepen. The people who actually see you, not the role you play. Those people get closer. And new people show up. People who are also building towards something real. People who aren't afraid of growth or change or messy honesty. Work changes. Maybe not the job itself at first, but how you show up to it. You stop performing. You stop pretending you're more invested than you are. You start having conversations about what you actually want, instead of just accepting what's offered. Sometimes that leads to a new role. Sometimes it leads to leaving. Either way, it feels more honest. Alone, you stop feeling so fragmented. The gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be gets smaller. You start trusting yourself more, listening to yourself more. The dream stops being a distant fantasy and becomes a daily practice of small, aligned choices. You're not perfect. You still doubt. You still get scared. But you're not on autopilot anymore. You're building. The psychology of dreams isn't about magical thinking or vision boards or manifesting. It's about reconnecting with the part of you that knows what you want and giving it space to guide your life. It's about noticing where you've been living someone else's version of your future and deciding to build your own. That kitchen moment, standing there with coffee, feeling the quiet ache of a life that doesn't fit. That moment doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning. The moment you stop waiting for permission and start listening to what's true. The future isn't something that happens to you while you're busy being practical. It's something you build, one small choice at a time, by asking yourself, what do I actually want? And then, what's one step I can take today that moves me closer to that? The dream doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to impress anyone. It just has to be yours. And it's waiting for you to start.
Thank you for watching this all the way through. If this resonated with you, subscribe for more videos on psychology, self-awareness, and inner growth. And I'd love to hear from you. Which part of this felt most familiar in your own life? Leave a comment below.